If I had to pick just one thing, a single habit, one practice that changed my life financially and in every other way, this is it. Not to be overly dramatic, but this single practice has had such an enormous impact on my life that I've dedicated this entire video to that. If you want to know what that is, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Jessica. Welcome to today's video and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe. We talk all things money on this channel and I share with you my own journey to financial independence. So what is this single practice that changed my life? The practice is gratitude. So hold on, there's a twist to this. Not only I'm talking about the practice of daily gratitude, but what I do at the end of each year that has had an enormous positive impact on my life. It's my year-end ritual of gratitude. It's something extremely personal and sacred to me. And I want to share this with you today. I'll share with you exactly what I do, what my practice is, how I got into it, and why I find it so powerful. And how it has become my absolute favorite way to wrap up the year. Although I've been writing down my goals since I was 21 years old, gratitude was not always a part of my practice. I've always believed in writing things down. I've always believed in writing down my goals because it gives me clarity. And there's something about writing it down and having that clarity that gives your goals power. But gratitude is something that I came across about 10 or 12 years ago. And the way I started it was with a gratitude jar. So years ago, I came across this practice called the gratitude jar. So the first year I did exactly that. I used a gratitude jar to practice my gratitude. What it is basically is I bought a clear jar. It was a plastic clear jar. And I just put in each night what I was grateful for into the jar. And I had put the jar, I put a little ribbon around the jar, a little pink ribbon to personalize it. And the jar cost about $1.50 at the time. And I left it on my nightstand beside my bed and had some Post-it notes, multiple colors of small Post-it notes about the small one, the square ones. And I chose that size because I figured I can easily fill up at least that small size. Essentially, I chose things that were visually appealing to me. Colorful Post-it notes, a clear plastic jar with some decoration, if you will, on it. I had a little pink ribbon tied to it. I do have a picture somewhere, but if I don't find the exact picture, I'll find something close to it, just so that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. And what that practice did for me, each night when I would go to sleep, I had that jar, Post-it notes, and a pen right beside my bed. So that was the last thing I would do. Each night I would go to sleep. I would think about what are some of the things that happened today? What was something wonderful or magical or positive or even just simple things that I was grateful for that day? It may have been a conversation. It may have been somebody did something nice that day. It may have been just me admiring something in nature or just anywhere around the world. So anything that I appreciated about that particular day, I would write that down on a Post-it and I would put it in that jar. And I made it a point to do it every single night. I mean, it was hard to miss because it was right there beside my bed. And I did that for a year. And just so many things changed for me, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But the point I'm trying to make here with the gratitude jar is that having that practice of the jar got me started. And it was visual, it was right there, it was convenient, so there was no way I was gonna forget about it. And once I reached the end of the year, and this is the magical part of the practice, this is the ritual that I'm talking about, it was so powerful that it shifted something inside me. What I did that year, on Christmas Eve, I had set some time aside because I wanted to go through my year of gratitude. So I had set aside about an hour and on Christmas Eve by myself. So I got my cup of coffee, I was cozied up in a blanket on the sofa, and I took that jar because each night I was adding a post-it note to the top. So by now the jar was about this big and it was full. So I took the jar, took the contents out, and I flipped them over. So the oldest post-it notes were on top now. So I was starting with what happened a year ago. I was starting with what happened on January 1st. And at this point, I was sitting there reading on December 24th. I started to read them starting the beginning of the year. And I had set aside about an hour to do this. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I ended up sitting there for about 4 hours. Mainly because as I was reading these things, I had completely forgotten what had happened each day and all of the amazing things that had happened to me, and simple things. It wasn't anything big. I mean, we always remember the big things, right? We generally are grateful for big things that happen, and those are memorable things. But there are things happen every single day, and I had completely forgotten about them. And which is why I just sat there reading each one. I spent a lot more time on some than others, but there were things that I had completely forgotten about, and I was so emotional and so moved. And I just couldn't believe that I didn't do this all along. But since I felt that impact, I never wanted to stop. So that day was just the most magical day for me. I wanted to keep that feeling alive. And the other thing I wanted to do that day was I didn't want to have a whole bunch of jars. I knew I was going to continue the practice, but I didn't want to have like 20 jars and 20 years. And those little pieces of Post-its were so precious to me that I didn't want to lose them. I wanted to remember this 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I wanted to remember all of those moments and all of those blessings that I experienced during the year. So from then on, I switched to a gratitude journal. So I figured a journal is big enough that I can put a few years into it, and then it's easier to keep, it's easier to have everything intact, so it's not little pieces of paper that might get lost over the years. So that's when I started writing in a gratitude journal. And because of the gratitude jar, the practice really became a part of me because it was right there. I did it for 365 days. So that was long enough for that practice to become a part of me. And after that, I did not go anywhere without my gratitude journal. And I was traveling for work. I've always traveled for work. I would carry my gratitude journal with me, and it just became a part of me. And I've been doing that since then. So this was around 12 years ago, I think. So after that experience with the gratitude jar, I went and got that journal. I just wanted to show this to you. So this was my very first gratitude journal that I purchased. I wanted to have something that was beautiful, that looked appealing to me, that I liked holding, and it just looked good to me. So everything has to really speak to you, right? It has to speak to your taste. It has to be something that you feel good looking at and writing in. And as you can see, it's a pretty thick journal. It took, I think, 3 years to fill because I didn't always fill a page, and I never left any room in it. I wrote pretty tight, I write pretty small, so sometimes a single page has 2 entries, and it took me a while to fill that. So once I filled that, then this one was my next journal. This one actually just finished about 30 days ago, I think. And then now I bought an electronic notebook, and in this notebook, I still handwrite. So it's one of those devices where you could just handwrite with a stylus pen. I tried keeping an electronic journal as well on a Word document. It just didn't work for me. I tried that for a few weeks a while ago, a couple of years ago. So I thought maybe I could eliminate paper and I could just do it in a Word document on my computer, which I always have with me anyways. So I gave it a try. I just didn't like it. It's because there's something for me in the process of writing. When I'm holding a pen and I'm writing something down in my own handwriting, There's just something there that really connects for me. And you might not be like that, and that's totally fine. You just have to do whatever works for you. But I really like the process of writing. So the notebook that I referred to just now, the electronic, you could actually handwrite. I mean, it'll let you convert into Word as well, but I don't do that. So in any case, I feel like this is just a gift. I've got 2 journals full, plus I've got this electronic notebook, and I still value the process of reading through these every single year. So not only I read through them every single year, going back to January 1st, but I also sometimes flip through it if I need inspiration, or if I'm feeling down about something, or if I'm not quite as energetic as I normally am, and I feel like I need a little pick me up. This is how I do it. I will just flip the page to whatever page comes. It might be 2 years ago, it might be 5 years ago, and I'll read a page and it just brings me back to that moment of gratitude. I mentioned earlier that this has been the single most important practice for me in terms of my financial life as well. It's just life in general, but because it's a personal finance channel, so let's tie it back to money and finances. I find what it does for me, the practice of gratitude, it helps me focus on what's important. It strips away everything that's irrelevant. It strips away the noise. And what you're left with at the end of the day is your focus on what's important, your focus on what's valuable. And a lot of people talk about time management and how time is so important and time is finite. To me, energy is the most important thing. So if you have time, let's say you have an entire day to yourself, that's a lot of time. But if you don't have the energy to do what it is that you want to do, if you're not in the right headspace, if you're stressed, if you're cluttered up here, if you're cluttered down here, nothing is going to matter. You're not going to want to do anything. So energy is extremely important. And what the practice of gratitude does is it brings me to focus. And I can put all of my time and my energy into things that matter to me the most. There were a number of unexpected things that started to happen to me as a result of this practice when I started this practice years ago. Now, these are the things that I had no idea. You can almost call them a side effect of this practice of gratitude. The first thing that I started to notice was as I began to write these things down back in my gratitude jar days. So that was the first year when I started doing this practice, was that I started to pay attention. I started to look for things that I wanted to be grateful for. Why? Because after the first 3 or 4 days, you start to run out of obvious things to write. Because when you start to do your gratitude practice, first 3 or 4 days, you can say, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my friends, I'm grateful for my dog, my health, my job, the money, whatever. But after a few days, you are gonna start to sound repetitive to yourself. And then I just wanted to have new things. I wanted to have something exciting to write, or something different at least to write every day. So I started to pay attention to what was going on. So if a colleague did something for me that I appreciated, if a neighbor did something for me, if a stranger on the road let me in, let me merge into their lane, if somebody waved at me because I let them in. And these are just some of the examples that happen to me all the time. Somebody held the door open for me. If I'm walking down the street, somebody gave a kind smile or somebody said hello. And if I'm out in nature and there's just such beauty out there, and which nature is beautiful. Now at this time, this was many years ago, I wasn't necessarily paying that much attention to nature per se, but this practice certainly brought that forward. So that was the first thing that was unexpected that started to happen to me. The second thing, which is tied to the first thing somewhat, is that I started to become much more attentive. As I started to look for those things that I wanted to write about, things started to shift. As the saying goes, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think Wayne Dyer said that. And that started to become a reality for me. The more I started to notice things, the more things started to happen. So I don't know what the truth is there in terms of how that happens, whether great things happen to us all the time and we just don't pay attention because we're too busy ruminating over things that are not going well, or just as you start to appreciate, more good things start to happen. I don't know, I don't care, but it worked. So more and more good things started to happen. Whether they were actually happening or I was noticing them, I think is irrelevant as long as you are seeing them today. The third unexpected thing that started to happen was that I started to sleep better. I started to fall asleep quicker. I was getting more restful sleep because at the end of the night, I was going to bed with the last thought being on gratitude. Instead of going to bed ruminating on my day and thinking about what I should have done differently or how I should have responded to so and so differently. A lot of us do that. I think if something happened and somebody said something to you and you couldn't think of a good comeback at the time, then you're going to sleep and you're thinking, I should have said this, I should have said that. All of the ways that we torture ourselves, it's incredible. So when I changed that practice, and I was going to bed by thinking all of the good things that happened to me, I started to sleep better. And what a blissful thought that is, which led to the next fourth and final thing that was unexpected that happened to me was when you go to sleep in such a blissful state, what happens? You wake up in that same blissful state. I started to wake up more rested, more energetic. And the first thought that I would wake up with was a thought of gratitude because that's the state I went to sleep with. And that's the state that I woke up in. And then I started to incorporate another practice as a follow-on. I started to say out loud words of gratitude, whether it was just a thank you just to the universe out there, or just at least that feeling of gratitude when I woke up first thing in the morning. I was looking forward to my day. I was happy to be alive. I was happy to be up and have the opportunity to do all of the things that I wanted to do that day. What a way to begin your day. I mean, I can't even imagine how my life was before this practice. I know I sound like a broken record, but I can't express to you enough what it will do for you if you just started to do this. And what a gift to give to yourself. I mean, at the end of the year, what a gift to give to yourself. Have 365 entries, or even if you miss 10%, it doesn't matter. Even if you have 300 entries, that's 300 days of your life when good things happened. You wrote down good things and you get to read them and you get to relive them again. What a gift. It has been such a gift for me, and I wanted to share this gift with you. And I really, really do hope you give it a try. Even start with 30 days. If you feel like 365 days seems like too big of a task, I assure you it's not. But even try it for 30 days. You can do anything for 30 days, right? You will be so glad that you did. And don't forget to tell me in the comments below. If you already have some type of a gratitude practice, tell me how you felt and how it changed your life. Or if you're going to start doing that, tell me that as well. I always love to hear from you. And that is all for today. I hope you have a great beginning to the new year, and I will see you in the next video. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of the upcoming videos, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.